Welcome to the August 2020 Park and Recs Commission meeting. First order of business here is the approval of agenda. Everybody should have gotten the agenda packet. I'd look for a motion.
So move.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to approve today's agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on, minutes from the last meeting, from the July 13th, 2020 meeting. That was also in your packet. Could I have a motion on that?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. Okay. Next up, we are to the department activity report. That was in the packet, and you should all have read that. Anything to highlight, Director Schmitz? Or
Chair Vorwerk and members, no, we do not have anything to add to the activity report. If you have any questions, we can try to address those.
if there are no questions, we will order that filed. And let's see. City Council recap, Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. There were actually 3 City Council meetings since our last Commission meeting a month ago. On July 21st, the City Council received and filed the 2019 budget audits. They also ordered in stop signs at the exit of the Community Center parking lot and the north terminus of the South Park Cartway at 17th South Street. And they also accepted the donations you recommend they accept. Then there was a special meeting called on July 24th to reconsider a prior authorization for the state baseball tournaments at Johnson and Miller Parks. And the City Council rescinded the prior authorization for the New Ulm Baseball Association and the Minnesota Baseball Association to host the amateur state baseball tournaments at Johnson and Miller Parks. Then there was a regular City Council meeting on August 4th of last week, and the only thing related to Park and Rec was for them to declare surplus some unneeded items from the Park and Rec Department. That is it from City Council activity over the past month.
All right, thank you, Director Schmitz. Was there any questions? All right. Moving on to old business, renew update, Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. First of all, we'll discuss Johnson Park. Of the 3 major renew projects, Johnson Park is now 100% complete with an improved entrance and the German Street facade updated, an expanded central concourse, plazas behind the 2 dugouts, a new roof on the grandstands, a new concession stand, an accessible toilet, and then the right field observation deck, along with an improved backstop and some other projects. So we are planning to conduct a ribbon cutting and grand opening next year when baseball resumes in the spring or early summer of next year in 21. The next renew project to discuss is Herman Heights Park. We're considering that approximately 35% complete at this time. MR Paving and Excavating is working full speed on as the prime and general contractor up there to relocate the entrance road, which is Monument Street, off the crest of the hill, to install 2 parking lots, a small one near the playground and a larger central parking lot, along with all that infrastructure, including storm sewer, sidewalks, curb gutter, street lighting, and so on. The other major component up there is replacement of the retaining walls on Center Street, and that is actually getting very close to being completed, possibly completed at the end of this week if the weather cooperates. The entire project is still slated to be done this autumn prior to the winter season, and the park remains closed entirely to the public, including the monument, playground, and shelters for the entire year because of the construction project. Any questions about Johnson or Herman? All right, we'll jump into the Recreation Center Renew project. Approximately 5% complete, with a lot of demolition taking place on the south portion of the building, which will eventually encompass some new indoor facilities, including the aquatic center, the playground, the gymnastics center, and an expanded fitness center. Groundbreaking was just a couple of weeks ago on July 29th. There are limited uses in the north portion of the building, including the field house and the racquetball courts. This summer, autumn, and winter, and then come April, we anticipate the entire building being closed until completion of the project in the autumn of '21. Any questions about Renew?
Okay, thank you, Director Schmitz. Okay, going on to new business. First order is 2021 fees. Director Schmitz?
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. This is our annual effort to review our fee schedule, which is a very complex and comprehensive document with all of the different fees related to the park and recreation system. You have in the packet a 3-year listing spreadsheet that has 2018, 2019, and 2020 fees, just for some comparison purposes. And then also in the packet, you have just the 2020 fees. Including picnic shelters in the parks, athletic fields in the parks, the indoor facilities of the Civic Center, Recreation Center, and Community Center. And then on page 14 of 23, in the packet, you have our portion of our department fee philosophy, which includes trying to keep fees affordable to all, considering annual adjustments for inflation, often at 2 to 3%, similar to the Consumer Price Index of the Upper Midwest. We also try to recoup expenses where feasible, and to consider partially subsidizing youth activities more so than adult activities. We know after many years of study and research that regular small increases are preferred over occasional large increases. And then the final item in our philosophy is that a user-based fee system is often preferred, so that users pay a fee for use and activity rather than entirely subsidized or a major portion subsidized by the property taxpayers, which is a chunk of our municipal budget, I think, as we all know. So we do not need to make any formal action this month, but I would suggest at our next meeting in September, or definitely at our October meeting, we need to finalize our fee schedule for next year, 2021, and forward that on to the finance director and ultimately the city council for their approval, which, happens annually this time of year. Any questions or comments related to that? So what I would suggest is you spend the next month reviewing this yourselves and bringing any ideas, thoughts, questions to the next meeting. And we can make some, action then if the commission views are, supported as a group.
All right, thank you, Director Schmitz. Next is 2021 budget.
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. This is also a part of our annual work plan, work schedule, and that is to review next year's budget. What we'll do is we'll go to page in the packet here. I think we have a couple of budget documents. to discuss some aspects. Here we go, page 15 of 23 in the packet. Just reminding the commissioners that the Park and Rec budget is basically its own fund. It's not in the general fund. The city general fund is Fund 100, and that has a number of departments in it, but not the Park and Recreation Department. The Park and Recreation Fund is numbered 215. It's its own fund. Unspent funds stay in the fund annually. Revenue is attributed to the fund, and then the fund earns interests. At the end of last year, December 31st of 2019, the fund balance was just under, well, it was $928,000. The Minnesota State Auditor recommends fund balances for municipalities to be in the 30 to 50% of annual expenditures. In 2020, the budgeted expenditures are $4.7 million. So our fund balance over the 15 years that I've been employed with the city has varied from probably as low as $500,000 up to, well over $3 million. So it does fluctuate, but the state auditor does recommend that 30 to 50%, so half of the annual budget is over $4 million. So you could say that we've got a fair amount of money to put in fund balance. A $2 million fund balance would probably be appropriate for a department of this size. So, considerations for next year. The department is planning no increase in expenditures and probably a decrease in expenditures in 21 versus 20. The recreation center revenue is anticipated to be reduced due to the Renew construction and, of course, the virus. But when the rec center opens anew in autumn of next year, we anticipate revenue to be above any previous year, on a monthly basis. No major new projects are anticipated or would be recommended. As we know, the virus is going to continue to probably decrease revenues, but then also many expenditures are decreased also because of the lack of activity. Revenue generating modest improvements may include that we might recommend for next year, including a 3-season shelter near the splash pad in North Park, a shelter renovation at Lincoln Park, and a shelter renovation in Washington Park. Mainly to allow those facilities to be rented and reserved and provide a revenue source to the department and the city. Other non-revenue generating projects may include an open shelter at the skate park and storage building to replace the storage building down at the art wall that will be demolished later this year. So future considerations, 10 years out. As you can see that list, I'm not going to read through that, but there's certainly a number of medium to large projects that may be appropriate in different parks. And then in the not too distant future, 13 years from now, the city might start considering to plan for Renew 3. And there's a list of some ideas for future planning down the road. So no action necessary on the budget. We will, just an update. The preliminary budget goes to the city council at the second meeting in September every year. So that will be the third Tuesday of September. They will be receiving, and the proposal to adopt the preliminary budget then will take place at the city council meeting. And then it's the rest of September, all of October, all of November, and most of December for changes to occur. And then the city council adopts the budget in December annually. So we will have more discussion over the coming couple of months, especially as it relates to the Park and Rec budget proposed for 2021. Any questions or comments?
So just, we're not requesting a motion here? Or-
No.
Okay. Am I reading the minutes wrong? Or the agenda? Okay,
Yeah, there is the potential there,
okay.
if you want to discuss that, or that can be
But we're not,
postponed to a
okay.
future meeting.
I don't think we're ready this time. No. Okay. Moving on to, thank you, Director Schmitz. Moving on to donations, Director Schmitz.
Okay, Chair Vorwerk and members, we have a list of donations offered to the city over the past month. I'll read those into the record. The first bunch here is for the German Park Amphitheater. These are all cash donations that are going towards the $100,000 match, anonymous match, pledge that will be honoring Janet and Terry Dempsey. First of all, $100 from Dave and Alita Bernick, $25 from Melanie Werner and family, $250 from Terry and Ellie Sweeney, $100 from Kim Hempel Schmitz and Tom Schmitz, $100 from Randy and Carolyn Newman, $100 from Margaret D. Oswald, $50 from Fred and Sandy Garai, $100 from Mary Kay O'Connor, $1,000 from the Laraway Family Fund in care of Dean Laraway, $50 from Irma R. McLean, $100 honoring Kurt and Ella Eisen from Heidi Glover, $100 honoring Vietnam veterans from Tom Backer. And then we have a few pledges, two pledges for the German Park Amphitheater, checks that we anticipate coming in within the next week or two. Again, those will go towards the $100,000 matching pledge honoring the Dempseys. There is $500 pledged honoring Vietnam veterans from Bruce Lombrecht and Jeannie Braun. $1,100 from Concordia Lanes and Kegel Club. So you have some subtotals there on your sheet. The next group is for German Park Paver Stones, $200 honoring William, Bill, and Mildred Ring from Linda Ring Tongate, and $200 in memory of past members of the DAV Auxiliary from the DAV Auxiliary Unit 15. And the final donation is $200 honoring Ralph and Sue Meidel, the Ralph and Sue Meidel family, from Tammy and Keith Henley. So that's $2,675 cash, $1,600 in pledges, $4,275 total over the past month. I recommend you forward that on to the City Council for their acceptance.
Thank you, Director Schmitz. All right,
I make a motion, we forward it to the city council.
I'll second that motion.
all right, there's been a motion and a second to forward the donations as Director Schmitz listed to the City Council. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is tobacco-free policy. Director Schmitz and Commissioner Bugler.
Yes, thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. You have before you a proposed action this month to consider establishing a subcommittee in order to study a potential tobacco-free policy for possible future recommendation to the City Council. And so I will begin the discussion here by stating the number of municipalities in Minnesota have tobacco-free policies, especially in their park and recreation systems, in their park and rec buildings, and their parks, and their trail areas. So we will further discuss that, and I can get to the section in the packet here. We will begin, I think, on page 18 of 23 in the packet. Commissioner Bugler and I have been discussing this a little bit, and we'll turn it over to Commissioner Bugler, and I'll try to manage the PowerPoint here.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for considering this. So on behalf of myself and as a commissioner, but also I'm a member of the Heart of New Ulm leadership team, coming to the commission to consider proposing a policy for city council to consider, making all of our park and rec facilities tobacco-free. So as Director Schmitz declared, our interest today or decision today would be, do we support moving forward with this? And if so, would be looking for a motion for that today to create a subcommittee to draft a policy that we could discuss at our September meeting, and then forward that policy on to the city of New Ulm. And we would work with, if there's volunteers from the commission to serve on that committee, plus work with Brown County Public Health and other free resources that are available to us to help us draft such a policy. If you want to move just to the next slide.
Yes.
So the why behind this, I think it's pretty clear, but if you look at the city of New Ulm and Park and Recreation, our job is to provide spaces for that promote good health, and removing tobacco would be sending the message, or making all of our parks and facilities tobacco-free would be sending the message that we want a very safe and healthy space for our families and individuals in the community to gather and spend time in those spaces. So it does promote healthy activities. Secondhand smoke does harm everyone, indoors and outdoors. There are several research studies that show even secondhand smoke in an outdoor setting can be just as harmful as it is in an indoor setting. And it causes a lot of litter. I myself, my kids play baseball. I've seen chewing tobacco left behind in the parks, worrying about small children, animals, plus the burden that it places on our city staff and our team to have to be cleaning that up as well. So it would be maybe not altogether removing that, hopefully, but addressing that issue as well. And it provides good role modeling to our youth and to others as well. It would provide consistency with our school policies and other organizations that encourage tobacco-free spaces and groups. And as Director Schmidt shared, over 130 cities, even many counties in the state of Minnesota, have already adopted, and they go back as late as 1993. And just last week, the city of Shakopee also approved a policy. So it's still ongoing work, but many cities have done it already and are seeing a lot of great success because of it. Our job is to represent the interests of our community and of our citizens. So, whether or not we make a motion today, would encourage you to reach out to your constituents to find out, do they support this? There are studies that show Minnesotans do support this, over 70%. And this is a study from about 2004, so it's a little dated. But over 70% surveyed that they would support tobacco-free policy because it reduces litter, it discourages youth smoking, it's a positive role model for our youth and our children in our community. And many, there's also a study done of directors of park and rec departments, what's the impact that's been seen when cities have implemented this policy, and you see less litter, less problems, usage of the parks didn't really change, and very few reported a negative, any negative publicity related to that decision. The policy, there's several versions of what a policy could look like, and what I'm encouraging us to consider is all tobacco would be included in the policy, and it would be all city property, including buildings and the grounds of which our properties are included. So it would address, the policy would address why are we doing this? Why is it important for us, our city, to have a policy like this available and enforced in our community? It would address which areas are tobacco free. We would encourage, there's a lot of city property in the city of New Ulm, but it would include parks, trails, buildings, facilities, even the fire department, any property that is owned by the city of New Ulm would be tobacco-free. And enforcement would be enforced by city staff, but there, we could recommend what we think is right, but many policies don't have a fine or any fee. The person using tobacco is just asked to leave the grounds or leave the facility. So I guess my ask of the commissioners is to support this. I think we can be doing better for our community. I think we provide exceptional programming. We provide exceptional facilities for our community to use, and I ask that you consider making it safer for our young people and even for our adults and our older people to be using that space as well. If your answer is yes, we support this and we want to create such a policy to, for the city of New Ulm to consider. We would develop a task force of 2 to 4 members. We'd include outside counsel as well, such as public health. And there's some free resources to help us draft such a policy, very likely connect with the city attorney as well. We'd come back to this group in September with a policy recommendation that we would then either continue to edit or approve at that point, and then we would recommend that policy to the city council for approval at an upcoming meeting. So I'll take your questions or your thoughts or ideas.
I mean, I'll give you a thought. I'm probably the only smoker in the room. Anybody else? Actually, though, as a counselor and a commissioner, I would support it. I mean, I know it's not good for you. I don't smoke around my grandkids. You try not to smoke around other kids. The only question I had is, are some cities really doing it like street sidewalks and right-of-ways? Are they?
We could discuss that. Some policies we could, and Mel had that question as well, whether we would encourage sidewalks. We could discuss that.
Okay.
And
I mean, I don't have an
maybe
issue with it in, any of the parks or that type of thing, but
having a neutral space.
we may draw a little slack, the sidewalk or the street.
Sure.
Get out of my car, my cigarette's in my hand, and what? Yeah, but I mean, otherwise, as a counselor, I'd support that 100%.
Well, I know one thing, at the baseball fields, you don't even have that problem. No one tries to even do it.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah, I think many people assume that it maybe already is a
Well, they don't-
policy, and on school grounds you can't, or, there's a tobacco-free
Yeah.
policy already, so it would align with that.
The street might be a little tough. It might be.
Yeah.
Do the city facilities for employees, do they have places where they can go smoke?
Do you have a workplace?
Well, presently, there's not a policy to prohibit tobacco on city property or city campuses. We certainly don't allow, smoking in buildings, but we have not prohibited smoking outdoors on city property.
So, for instance, would be at the Civic Center, there's a hockey tournament and there's parents outside smoking. They would have to actually go to the street or whatever, huh?
That is correct.
Kind of like a Linus policy. I mean, that's where they go to,
Yes.
as far away as possible on the sidewalk.
Yes, many, I talked with the Brown County today. They have a workforce policy, also not on the grounds of county, clearly not in buildings or in structures, but also not on the grounds. So there's other workplace policies that may be more stringent than community policy. But in this case, yes, that's what I'm encouraging us to consider, is not on the grounds or in the structures.
Okay, thank you. So I think there's quite a bit of interest in this. Do we want to have a motion for a subcommittee?
Now, you want those that are interested, Tom, in that motion, correct? Or not?
That would be entirely up to the commission to decide if they want to put that in the motion or develop the subcommittee after the motion.
Okay.
Which way?
You can do it either way.
Okay. Does anyone want to offer a motion?
I'll motion to establish a subcommittee to study potential tobacco-free policy for possible future recommendation to the city council.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second to establish the subcommittee for potential tobacco-free policy. Any more discussion? Otherwise, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Now, we need to form a subcommittee.
Yes.
So we're just looking for interest here amongst the group.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would
Okay,
suggest
so
you ask for
Commissioner Bugler?
volunteers.
Would like to be on it. Any
Actually, I'd be on it.
Counselor Christian? So
2 to 4 you
2
were
to
looking
4
for?
is a magic number, so if anyone else.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Good, we'll come back in September with a drafted policy, and we'll seek some outside counsel as well, so we get some other perspectives and hopefully have a great policy for the group to consider and support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to staff reports. Director Schmitz, are there?
Thank you, Chair Vorwerk and members. Just a few items. It's kind of hard to believe it's already August 10. Summer is certainly waning, which means, outdoor aquatic facilities are beginning to consider closing. I know our 2 wading pools will be closing in the not-too-distant future, certainly before the end of August. The splash pad, we do hope to keep open if the weather is still warm through Monday, Labor Day. So there's a couple of thoughts with our outdoor aquatic facilities. Let's see, other projects, I don't think our prime contractor has begun. I wasn't down at Riverside Park today yet, but we do have that project that will take place and get completed before the end of the year down at the Riverside Park building to provide ADA accessibility into the building and the large outdoor learning center space observation deck on the riverside of that building. Other projects, we're still mowing, so the maintenance staff is still quite busy. The programming staff is having to juggle, reorganize, and retool often because of the virus. There's a lot of activities on hold or in question yet between both youth and adult, along with school activities. So at this point, I have nothing else necessarily to report from staff, unless there's any questions.
Just a quick question, maybe Director Schmitz, I should have asked during the city council, but with Herman Fest, we talked about it at our last meeting. Has the group come forward to request use of our city park, or have they decided not to hold their event this fall?
That's a great question. The Herman Monument Society, that is the producer of Herman Fest annually, has decided not to produce the fest this year.
Okay.
Because of the virus. So there will not be a Herman Fest the Saturday after Labor Day, as has been over the past 6-7 years. So correct, no Herman Fest. Any other questions at all? We do have, we're still getting shelter rentals and things like that for small private parties. I guess there is a big announcement on the amphitheater. The German Park Outdoor Performing Arts Center is complete, except for the landscaping, which will be planned to be completed over the next month or two, which includes sodding. We're going to have sod on the areas that are just mulch right now, and then some trees will be planted also. But the shade structure is not yet funded or authorized, so fundraising continues on the shade structure. But we have already been getting phone calls to rent that facility. The grand opening ribbon cutting will take place next year, next spring, possibly Memorial Weekend. But we anticipate, hopefully, the virus allowing a large crowd. Presently, we cannot control the number of people in the amphitheater. It's not fenced. So we are not going to be doing a grand opening this autumn at the amphitheater. But we are getting calls, where we are renting it to small private gatherings that can control their own small crowds. Plus, we're getting a number of calls in for next year. It's going to become, I think, the #1 regional outdoor destination for weddings. We're getting a number of phone calls for weddings already. And the Monday night concert series and the Wednesday evening concert series will also be moved to the German Park next year. So stay tuned for that, and also be aware that fundraising continues, so that we can get that shade structure installed prior to the open house next spring.
All right, thank you, Director Schmitz. All right, are there any commissioner reports for today? I don't believe so. All right, our next meeting will be September 14th, 2020, yeah. And there being no further items, we will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.